Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're diving into something I think you're going to find really exciting. We're going to learn how to start thinking in English.
Yeah.
And we got a guide for this deep dive.
Mm-hmm.
And it's full of easy steps you can use right away.
I love it.
No complicated stuff, I promise.
It's really great. What's neat about this guide is that it's made for people who are just starting their English journey.
Right.
It really breaks everything down into small little pieces.
Exactly. So the first step is all about starting small.
Mm.
And it's called step 1. Start with simple words and phrases.
Okay.
The guide says to look around you and name things in English, like this is a chair or the cat is sleeping. Really basic stuff, right?
Super simple, but here's why it's so powerful. You're training your brain to connect the English word directly to the thing that you see. You're not translating it in your head first.
Right.
It's like how babies learn language. They
Right.
just connect the word with the object.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, then we move on to step 2. Speak short sentences to yourself.
Right.
The guide gives examples like, I am going to the store, or I am eating lunch.
Okay.
Short and sweet.
Yeah. And the guide says, don't worry about getting the grammar perfect at this stage.
Okay.
Just focus on making those sentences.
Right.
It's about getting comfortable speaking,
Mm-hmm.
not being perfect straight away.
That's reassuring, for sure. Now, step 4. Think in English before you sleep.
Interesting.
This one really caught my attention. Thinking in English before bed. That's a new one for me.
It might sound a little strange, but there's a good reason the guide suggests it. Thinking in English before you fall asleep might actually help you learn faster.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's like your brain is working on the language even when you are sleeping.
Wow.
The guide even says to try whispering the thoughts to yourself.
Okay.
It can help you feel more confident.
Wow, that's an interesting idea. It makes sense to give it a try. There's also step 6. Change your phone and apps to English.
Ooh, yeah.
That sounds like a simple way to get more exposure to the language.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. You're
Yeah.
basically surrounding yourself with English all the time. Your phone becomes a tool for learning
Ooh,
without you even noticing it.
that's clever.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we have step 9. Use a mind map or diary. The guide suggests writing down simple thoughts and plans in English.
Yeah.
Kind of like a to-do list, but in English.
Writing can help your brain remember things better.
Mm.
And even writing simple things in English can help you get used to thinking in that way. It's like exercise.
Yeah.
But for your English.
I'm really liking these practical tips. Let's move on to step 10. Practice daily consistency is key.
Okay.
It really emphasizes spending 15 to 20 minutes each day thinking and speaking only in English. Sounds like a commitment, right?
It is a commitment,
Yeah.
but that's where the real progress happens. This step pushes you to think directly in English without translating first.
Right.
And it really builds on that no translation rule from step 1.
Yeah.
The guide really wants you to practice thinking in English directly.
Right. The more you practice, the easier it gets.
Mm.
The guide even suggests making it a bit of a challenge. Try to slowly increase that practice time as you get better.
Exactly. It's like training for a marathon. You start with shorter distances and
Yeah.
build up your stamina. The guide even says no translating is allowed during that 15-minute period.
Yeah,
That's how you really force your brain to switch to English mode.
I see how that would be effective.
Yeah.
Okay, let's look at the final tips for success. The guide says to be patient with yourself, start with small steps, and don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Sounds like good advice for anything in life.
What I love is that the guide says to enjoy the process.
Yeah.
It even suggests fun ways to practice, like watching TV shows in English, playing word games, or even just chatting with friends.
Yeah,
Learning a language shouldn't feel like a chore.
absolutely. It's all about making it fun and engaging. Speaking of fun, there's also step 7. Use English while watching or listening.
Right.
So things like watching videos, listening to podcasts, or even just listening to songs in English can help, right?
Absolutely. It's about surrounding yourself with the language as much as you can.
Right.
The guide suggests starting with simple things like shows made for kids or podcasts for beginners.
That's a good place to start. I like how the guide makes things simple and easy to understand.
Yeah.
What stands out to me is how it encourages actively listening.
Uh-huh.
You know, like pausing a video and asking yourself,
Right.
what did they just say? What does that mean?
Yeah, it's about really paying attention to the language. And the guide even suggests repeating phrases from the shows to help you remember them.
Right.
It's like a mini practice session
Yeah.
while you're having fun.
I love that. Okay, let's look at step 8. Practice small English conversations daily. This one seems pretty straightforward. Just talk with yourself or a friend in English for a few minutes each day.
Yeah, it sounds simple, but it's really powerful. The more you speak, the faster your brain will learn to think in English. The guide even gives you some ideas for what to talk about, like, what did you do today? Or what's your favorite food?
Those are good conversation starters for sure. It's all about finding ways to use the language every single day.
The biggest takeaway here is that practice makes perfect.
Yeah.
But don't forget to have fun while you're learning.
Well said. This has been a great deep dive.
Yeah.
I feel like I've learned so much about how to start thinking in English.
It's been fun exploring these steps with you.
Yeah.
Hopefully you're feeling inspired to try them out.
I am.
Good.
Don't worry.
That's what we want. Our listener is really getting the idea that practice is super important.
Yeah, it seems like consistency is key here. But the guide also talks about enjoying the process. I'm curious, do you think having fun actually helps you learn a language faster?
It absolutely does. When you're enjoying something, your brain is more active and engaged, and that makes it so much easier to learn new things, including a new language.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, one of the final tips in the guide is to start small and be patient.
Yeah.
I think that's really great advice, and especially for something challenging like learning to think in a whole new language. What are your thoughts on that?
I completely agree. Trying to do too much too quickly can be overwhelming.
Right.
It's better to start with small goals, things that you can actually achieve and build up from there.
Right.
Just like learning anything new, you need to be patient with yourself and celebrate those little wins along the way.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So if you were giving advice to someone who's just starting out with thinking in English, what would be your top tip?
My top tip would be to find ways to make it a part of your daily life.
Okay.
Don't think of it as like a separate task or a chore.
Right.
Instead, try to mix it into things you already like to do.
Could you give us some examples?
Absolutely. If you love watching movies, try watching one in English with the subtitles on. If you love music, listen to English songs and try to understand the lyrics. If you like reading, pick up a simple English book or even a children's book. The key is to find something you enjoy doing and make it a part of your routine.
Those are all great ideas. So we've covered a lot of ground today.
Yeah, we have.
From starting with simple words and phrases to practicing every day. This guide really gives you a map for how to learn to think in English.
It does. And the best part is that it's all about making it fun and something that you want to do. Speaking of making it fun, I have one final thought for our listener.
Right.
We talked about practicing every day. What if you made it even more specific? What if you actually set a specific time every day for practicing your English thinking? Like maybe just after you wake up or right before you go to sleep.
I think that's a great idea. Having a set time can really help you stay consistent. It just becomes a part of your routine.
Yeah.
Brushing your teeth or have your first cup of coffee.
Exactly. And by picking a time that's already part of what you do each day, it doesn't feel as hard and it's easier to fit in.
So for anyone listening who is ready to dive in and start thinking in English, I say go for it. Pick one or two tips from this guide that really speak to you and start practicing today.
I love it.
Yeah.
This deep dive has been so helpful. We've learned so many great tips and strategies that anyone can use to start thinking in English.
And remember, it's a journey, not a race. Be patient with yourself. Enjoy the process. And celebrate all those little victories along the way.
I love that. So what stood out to you most from all these steps? What really clicked?
For me, it's making it fun, you know? And part of everyday life. Like, it shouldn't feel like a chore or something you have to force yourself to do. It should be about finding those ways to make learning English something you enjoy and naturally do each day. Yeah, that's a great point. It's about making it sustainable, right? Like something you can actually keep up. And that no translation rule, I think that's really key too. It really encourages you to think in English right from the start.
Totally. And you know what else I love? How this guide lets you figure out what works best for you. Like whether it's watching movies or listening to music or chatting with friends, it's all about making learning English your own thing.
Speaking of making it your own, I have one final thought for you, our listener. We talked about picking a specific time each day to think in English, but what about making it even more personal? Like, what if you combine it with something you already love to do?
Oh, that's such a cool idea. It could be anything. Your morning walk, your commute to work, even just your time cooking dinner. By pairing it with something you're already doing, it just flows and becomes a natural part of your day.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe you'll even find yourself looking forward to that English thinking time. So why not give at least one of these techniques a shot today? Pick one that feels right to you and just see how it goes.
Love it. And remember, even small steps can make a big difference. The most important thing is just starting somewhere and keeping at it. It's a journey, this whole thinking in English thing, not a race.
Well said. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it's given you some good stuff to work with and inspired you to start thinking in English, feeling confident and ready to go. Until next time, happy learning. Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're tackling something that I think a lot of you will find really useful.
Absolutely. We're looking at some basic English conversation skills.
Yeah, and we've got a fantastic guide here that's designed specifically for beginner English learners.
And it's packed with real-life dialogue examples, so it's super practical.
I was really impressed with how practical it is. So let's dive right into it, okay? Right off the bat, the guide starts with greetings.
Oh yeah, gotta start somewhere, right?
Exactly. So it gives us this example. Hi, my name is Rahul. What's your name? Super simple, right?
Yeah, straightforward and friendly.
Totally. But what I really like is that it breaks it down even further.
Oh, you mean explaining each individual word and the purpose?
Yeah. It points out that hi and hello are ways to say hello, which seems obvious.
But for someone just starting out, that little bit of extra explanation can be really helpful.
Right. And then it goes on to say that nice to meet you is a way to express, that you're happy to meet someone new.
That's so important. And I think sometimes things that seem so basic to us as, more experienced English speakers, they can actually be kind of tricky for new learners. It's really all about understanding the why behind the words.
I totally agree. And the guide even has this practice tip where it suggests saying the entire conversation out loud.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah, and they even encourage you to, replace Rahul and Priya with your own name and, really personalize it.
Yeah, because it's about making it real, right? And talking out loud, even if you're by yourself, that's how you actually get better at speaking.
Exactly. Practice is key, no matter what you're learning.
It really is. Think about learning a new song. You wouldn't just read the lyrics, you'd sing it over and over again.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on. Let's imagine a scenario where you're lost. What do?
Ask for directions.
Exactly. The guide gives us this example. Excuse me, can you help me? I'm looking for the nearest coffee shop. Do you know where it is?
Perfect. So polite, it highlights the importance of being polite when you ask for help.